Good morning and welcome to Sitematch365, where it's an honour to be presenting the London Borough of Ealing, thanks to the support of our sponsors, SoResi and Carter Jonas. Many of you will have attended our annual Sitematch event, which takes place in London every year since 2012, hosting around 50 public sector landowners each time. Every one of those organisations spends the day hosting 15-minute meetings with developers and investors and influencers. And we've had some great outcomes in terms of relationships started and nurtured to the point of investment and delivery in dozens of boroughs. But the one overwhelming disadvantage of that model is that if a council or a developer isn't available on that one day a year, they miss out. So while lockdown has meant we can't all be together in one room, it's also provided an opportunity for councils to select the day they're available, to provide a free-to-view briefing on their opportunities and what developers can expect when doing business with them, and to host some 15-minute meetings, one-to-one online afterwards. Any developers or investors who can't make the session can access a video of the briefing anytime at www.sitematch365.com and arrange a meeting during a second follow-up slot set by the council. Our hope is that all this will make it easier for the development community to play its part in getting the UK economy back on the road to recovery. And we look forward to working with you all in that aim. And we're absolutely delighted that so many of you have spared the time today to hear what Ealing has to offer. It's a great sign for the future of the UK economy. If you like what you hear and you haven't yet booked a meeting with the borough, email paul@threefoxinternational.com right now. The address is on the screen behind me. And why wouldn't you? Ealing ticks so many of the boxes that indicate attractive development opportunities. There's huge infrastructure investment in Crossrail, which will complete one of these days, and we'll hear more about that shortly. Attractive places with decent reputations and resilient communities from Southall to Ealing Common, and a council you can do business with. One of the first of London's suburbs in the last couple of decades to make a persuasive case for substantial development and growth in outer London, and pioneers in initiatives such as the return to council house building and, with Greystar in particular, the recent rise of build to rent. We're going to hear from Greystar in about 30 minutes on what it's like to do business in and with Ealing. But first we're going to set the scene with briefings from the council. In a moment, Director of Regeneration and Planning, Lucy Taylor, will reveal 5 new development opportunities. And before that, Cabinet Member for Housing, Planning and Transformation, Councillor Peter Mason, will talk about the particular challenges facing the borough, with a special focus on delivering the new homes that Ealing needs. But first, it's my pleasure to welcome the leader and my old cycling buddy, Councillor Julian Bell. Councillor, would you spend a minute or so giving us an overview of the borough as a location for investment and development?
Good morning, Toby, and absolutely delighted to do that. And thank you for giving us this opportunity to once again say what a fabulous place the London Borough of Ealing is. Obviously, we want it to be a cycling borough. We want it to be the Copenhagen of London. And so, you know, those principles of sustainability and exploiting and using our fabulous environment that we have is a clear attraction for Ealing. All of our green spaces, you know, you're right at the heart of the action because of our connectivity, but you have this fabulous quality of life because of our green spaces and our parks. And there's a real richness to that, and certainly, you know, one of my kind of biggest boasts is that when Crossrail finally does come, and yes, it will come, we will be a kind of inner London borough for travel times, but an outer London borough for quality of life. And yes, with all the kind of post-COVID changes in terms of more home working and people not wanting to travel into the centre anymore, there's a real opportunity for places like Ealing in Zone 3, and you know, new opportunities on the Uxbridge Road, a new office corridor that we're already kind of working on at the moment. But it is our connectivity that really makes us stand out. I think I've even been so outlandish to suggest that Ealing is the most connected place in the universe. Certainly, if you look at where we are in terms of London and the UK, you couldn't be better connected. And certainly when some of these big infrastructure projects come through, HS2, the interchange just over the border at Old Oak with Crossrail, giving fantastic connectivity when that comes. Also, when Crossrail comes, most Crossrail stations of any other borough, 5, and all of those development opportunities around Crossrail. Fantastic tube connectivity, 3 tube lines, brilliant road connectivity close to the M4, the M40, the M1, the North Circular. I could go on. It's basically the place to be. It's the capital of West London, and we're at the heart of the West London Alliance, which is the 7 boroughs in West London, which collectively we represent an opportunity for. It's 72 billion gross value added. Now that's before COVID, and yes, we have been hit by COVID, and there are challenges there. But whenever we face challenges, because of our uniqueness, because it's just not just our connectivity, it's our diversity, our fantastic schools that we have. Southall, a rich cultural offer. We have all our fabulous events, our festivals, and yes, they will come back post-COVID. There's a real cultural richness, a film heritage with Ealing Studios. I saw on the list we've got Barnaby Thompson with us this morning from Ealing Film Studios. We're very proud of what Ealing Film Studios do and what film history represents in Ealing. And yes, we will get that cinema back. We've got a record of delivering. We'll take tough choices. A CPO to get the cinema on track, the FilmWorks project, and we're ready to do things. We're ready to build. We've got these 5 shovel-ready sites that Lucy's going to talk about later. So, quite frankly, why would you want to go anywhere else?
Well, Julian, we've got 130 odd hungry developers watching this right now. What do you want them to do? What's in your wish list for Ealing in terms of development, either in the sort of broadest macro terms or in the specifics of what you'd like to see created and built here?
So, top of my wish list is for Crossrail to be completed. And there was a slight pause at the height of the COVID crisis, and those works stopped, but they've now been back working away on Crossrail and on our stations. And if you go and have a look at our stations, you can physically see that they're rising out of the ground and things are happening. So, we have already got that Paddington to Reading Crossrail service operating. So those fabulous new trains are whizzing you in and out of Ealing already. So that's a key one. I've already talked about our cinema, and clearly, the good people of Ealing, they don't get excited about many things. They don't come and dance in the street for many things. But trust me, when that cinema opens, in hopefully about a year or just over's time, because again, there's been a little bit of delay because of COVID, but that cinema will be finished shortly, and we're looking forward to that. That'll be fantastic. Incredible work around North Acton. In my first comments about what a great place Ealing is. I didn't talk about our students and our academic institutions. At North Acton, we're working with Imperial, and there's Imperial College students at North Acton. We've got the University of West London in Ealing, and then we've got Ealing, Hammersmith and West London College as well. So, a really talented pool of young people ready to step in and help businesses and developers work and grow in Ealing. So, the West London Orbital, I didn't mention that in terms of important transport infrastructure projects. Really, really critical that we take advantage of those orbital opportunities that would come if we can get the West London Orbital off the ground, connecting into that fabulous Old Oak Crossrail HS2 interchange as well from north and south. So some real opportunities in North Acton and Old Oak, and the Old Oak Park Rail Development Corporation is now looking westward to what it's kind of like Game of Thrones or called the Western Lands, and the Western Lands are all in Ealing in Park Royal. An international convention centre is a vision that we've got for those Western Lands in Old Oak Park Royal. Even floated the idea of a 2030 Olympic bid in conjunction with Birmingham and the Stratford, linking those three locations with those fantastic new transport infrastructure projects, HS2 and also Crossrail, all linked together at Old Oak. So, we've got a fabulous vision, lots of things happening in Southall, but we'd love to see Gurnell's leisure centre built. We want to make sure that our new council HQ, Percival House, that happens. We've got an awful lot of things happening, but that's kind of standard for us. We've exciting times to be involved with Ealing.
And in terms of the sorts of partners that you'd like to be working with in delivering that ambitious and extensive wish list, what kind of values and experience are you looking for in your development partners?
So, we want to work with the best. We're wanting to work with partners who've got that understanding of green issues, sustainability. That quality of life is a key part of what we're trying to achieve. So we want placemakers. We want people to understand our vision of place, which, as I say, has got that kind of green, sustainable element to it. Also, working with our communities, our diversity is our strength, and ensuring that we tap into that kind of diverse cultural richness that is Ealing and is Southall or wherever you go in the borough. Respecting our communities and working with them, and tackling poverty. Peter will say something about our 2,500 genuinely affordable homes, but people who are willing to work with us to give those genuinely affordable homes to those who are really struggling and who are currently excluded. That inclusion and raising people out of poverty, providing jobs and homes is a key value and aim for us. So, we want people who've got experience. We tend to keep working with people when they come to us. They do one site, they enjoy the experience, they want to do more. So kind of long-term partnerships are what we're looking for as well.
Fantastic, Julian. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for setting the scene for the rest of the morning. But let's pick up on that thread of housing that you mentioned and turn to Councillor Mason. Peter, what challenges do you face in overcoming the pandemic, the COVID-19, and executing your recovery strand so that the developers who are watching can get involved in this program that Julian set out?
Yeah, well, obviously, the pandemic has probably been the largest thing that the council's ever had to do, certainly in my lifetime, perhaps probably all of our lifetimes. And therefore, the challenges that we face, both in terms of kind of keeping the local economy on the road, but as well as keeping kind of council services, it's a huge task. We've over the last 10 years lost a good 2/3 of our kind of discretional budget as a council, and therefore we've had to do things in different ways. And part of that is the agenda around growth and raising our tax base, which is kind of where some of this conversation really stems from. From our perspective, in terms of the planning system, it's been important to keep it on the road. Not just because the government have given a directive, and of course we've got to follow, but the key priority for the borough and the administration has been the delivery of our house building programme. And actually, the COVID situation makes the situation more complex in terms of our ability to keep that pipeline going. So we very rapidly gave an indication to the market that we would keep the planning system going. People will have seen the statement we put out that made some changes to the way in which we were going to handle planning applications. To give communities also some more guarantee, given that we've all been spending so much time in our localities and in our flats and engaging with our local communities in a much kind of deeper way than we would have done if we were commuting off into central London. But really to kind of give some assurance that we wanted to keep those conversations moving. Already it's been quite fascinating to have some conversations and to see those coming forward around concerns around stalling, concerns around delivery, and what conversations can be had. Today the Mayor of London has put out a call for a £5 billion investment scheme to help developers, particularly where you've got schemes that you're concerned about the sales market, but local authorities stepping in as a buyer of last resort. Because ultimately the key goal for us as the authority is the delivery of both the housing delivery test, so we can kind of retain our powers, but also that key target that Julian's spoken of, which is the 2,500 genuinely affordable homes. And that really comes from the central principle of the fact that we have a very unequal borough, and we have some real challenges around income inequality. On the eastern edge of the borough, you can earn, your average earnings will be around £40,000. On the western edge of the borough, where I represent, that figure is 18. And so that huge gap, both in terms of geography and income, is the thing that's hitting our communities very hard, and it will hit them even harder as we potentially enter into recession. So making sure that people have decent living incomes and having conversations about the use of land for industry and for jobs as much as it should be for housing, but also making sure that we've got a good supply of genuinely affordable homes, and working with everybody on this call to deliver that is absolutely important to us.
Fantastic. And are there any particular challenges in delivering those homes that you'd want to convey to an audience of developers as we enter this period of recovery?
No, indeed. We all work with the system as we have it, rather than the system that we would want. So we are all having to operate within the viability regime, and we're certainly having to operate in a planning system that the government has certainly indicated that we might be seeing some quite radical changes to, in terms of zonal planning. I don't think that we should allow structure to get in the way of either a positive deal that works both for us and for our residents. And therefore, anybody who's worked with us in the past knows that we're creative and we're open and we're very much happy to take risks on new products. James is going to talk about Greystar and Ealing kind of being one of the, if you like, the first destinations in the UK for the build-to-rent sector, and experimenting with kind of patient capital to support long-term high-quality PRS. So we're happy to take risks, but in exchange for that risk-taking, we absolutely need assurances from the people that we're working with that you're going to help us do things like deliver higher numbers of genuinely affordable homes, that you're going to help us secure opportunities for our residents in terms of jobs and greater income, that you're going to help us with sustainability, and all of those things are possible. You know, we don't have to work within the system as it is. We can come to those agreements, and we can reach those conclusions locally, and I think we can all get from the system what we need.
What about the role of the council in getting the house building programme kick-started, restarted, recovered? What kind of roles will the council play in that? And obviously I'm referring partly to the sort of direct build part of your programme.
Yeah, definitely. You know, obviously, you know, 90% or more of the housing house construction industry is you guys. It's the private sector, and the council's going to take a bit of that action. You know, partly that's about profit margins and about making sure that we have a higher percentage of genuinely affordable homes. If I could get each and every one of you to deliver 100% genuinely affordable homes, I surely would. But I'm sure some of you are wincing. I can't see you, but nevertheless, don't worry. We have targets, and we'll work with you on them. And we're pragmatists. We know how the system works. But as a council, we want to bring forward our own schemes. And so in the next few months, we're going to be bringing the first set of planning applications. That's the first phase of Broadway Living, our wholly owned council house building company that we've worked to rapidly scale up in the current environment. And therefore, you know, we're as much as you guys looking for land to develop on. Much of it we own. But where we can work with good constructors and good people within the design and creative industry, we surely want to do that. We surely want to do that too. The ultimate goal is the delivery of homes that people can afford to live in. And we're, as I say, whether it's working ourselves through Broadway Living and our agenda, or it's working with the private sector to kind of get good deals and to get those outcomes, you know, we will be creative. We'll be risk taking if we can get what we need.
You may be encouraged to know that as you were talking about affordable homes just then, the audience numbers ticked up by a couple good. Rather than down. So perhaps that's a fine sign that the audience is receptive and looking forward to getting involved. There's a question that's come from the audience. I don't know if you or Councillor Bell would prefer to tackle this, but the audience is asking about the climate crisis and how that plays into your plans for recovery. And we hear a lot about getting back better, and you know, these sorts of glib phrases, building better, and so on. I mean, is this the art of the possible? When times have never been more difficult, can you recover in a sustainable and green way?
Julian, do you want to go, or do you want me to?
Well, I've put something in the chat. I think I've answered it in a very brief way, but you know, clearly we want to take advantage of COVID around active travel infrastructure. You know, we've already got over £600,000 of funding from TfL to put in temporary cycling and walking infrastructure. Our aim is to hopefully get about over £1 million funding, and to actually make these permanent, these changes, so that, as I said, we can kind of be the cycling Copenhagen of London. So we have a climate crisis strategy and action plan that we're working on, and clearly working towards net zero carbon by 2030 is a key objective. But happy for you to add anything, Peter.
So I caused a bit of controversy a couple of days ago by summarising a conversation that I'd had during a meeting where we were discussing our local plan, where I posed the question, Queen of the Suburbs, a phrase that's often been associated with the London Borough of Ealing, is it fit for the 21st century, and does it describe the borough? It was an open conversation on a call, and I asked it to kind of be slightly controversial. But I think underneath the question, and in the context of COVID, lies a really important question about sustainability. What COVID has done is really shake the model of a city like London, where all of the big employers and all of the employment activity ends up being sent to the central activity zone, and that predicates a lot of the infrastructure investment that's gone into a borough like Ealing. You know, all of us have seen what happens when you knock out mass transit in a borough or in a city like London, and the impact that it then has. So many of us have been engaging and accessing our local parades, our local high streets and our communities in a different way than we would have done before. And partly that does speak to kind of the vision that we want to achieve as a borough. You know, our vision isn't as a dormitory town to central London. Yes, transport is important and people continue to commute, and we absolutely want to make sure that people can get to their places of work in central London culture very quickly. But Ealing has its own. We've got our own industries, and we've got very strong identities in our 7 towns. We've got high streets that we want to reinforce. We've got culture that we want to expand and highlight and really celebrate, whether that's the film industry, whether that's our minority ethnic communities in Southall and elsewhere. And so, you know, we want to have a conversation about, you know, Ealing as the city rather than Ealing as the suburb of the city. So kind of local growth, retaining value, but also baselining in all of the things that we know that we can do around climate crisis, zero carbon homes, passive house standards. All of those need to be the tools, but if you like, the vision is what can we do to make Ealing the destination rather than always just the central activity zone.
Fantastic, Peter. Thank you very much. And there are more questions coming in. Audience, do feel free to fire in questions. If we have time at the end, we'll put them to the panel. If we don't have time, we'll put them to the panel by email. And once we've gathered responses from them, we'll channel those back to you through social media. So do fire them in. And I should probably say we're doing our little bit for the climate crisis by stopping 250 people traipsing across London to take part in Sitematch. We're all doing it on land, but I can't really say that because we haven't actually measured the environmental impact of data centres and electricity use and the lights in the house and your impressive greenery and shrubbery, Peter, the cost of your indoor garden. So we should probably do some proper sums at some point. But let's get back to Ealing. Lucy, Director of Regeneration and Planning at Ealing Council. We've talked a lot about Crossrail already, but it's hard to talk about Ealing without talking about Crossrail because it's potentially got such a mammoth impact in terms of 5 new stations opening up across the borough. And what kind of effect have they had, and what kind of effect do you think is still to come from those? And what's the timing, most importantly?
Morning. Thanks, Toby. Yeah, so I think, you know, Crossrail has already been, and we've probably seen this for about 10 years or so, a real game changer for Ealing. And you know, as Julian said, it probably makes Ealing one of, you know, probably the best connected place in London when you think about its position between central London and Heathrow, etc. As you said, we've got 5 Crossrail stations, the most in London, and the journey time that's going to cut for people is absolutely incredible and means it's a game changer. And people will have seen some of these statistics we've talked about before, but it more than halves journey time. So if you think about somewhere like Southall in the west of our borough, getting from Southall to central London, no changes, in 15 to 17 minutes. I mean, that's incredible. That's like being in zone 1. And so what that's done over the last few years, as I think we've probably seen the sort of effect move from east to west in the borough. So people picked up very quickly on the impact of Crossrail in Ealing Broadway and West Ealing, and some of the developments that have come through already and are finished have been a result of the promise of Crossrail, but partly because we were already really well connected. But Southall, I think, is where the big change is now being seen, and Crossrail will really make a difference for Southall. So I can say that, as Julian said, there was a short pause in Crossrail, but TfL have said to us that they will be finished in 2021. I think I would say autumn 2021, so just over a year, we will have Crossrail services running through Ealing and delivering those journey times that I talked about. So really looking forward to that, and I think that's close enough for people to really start investing and thinking about Ealing not just as a housing location, but as somewhere for offices and employment as well.
And Lucy, you've experienced Ealing's sort of growth curve over the last the decade that we've been working with you. What kind of developers and what kind of development and investment are you keen to attract at the moment, and how has that sort of changed?
I think just picking up on what I've just finished on, we really want people who bring mixed use development. So we've seen quite a lot of investment come mainly as housing development, and I think our focus now has to be to move towards mixed use. So we want people to bring housing as well as bringing jobs, and as Councillor Mason talked about, development of our local economy is really critical, particularly in this recovery phase from COVID, but it always has been. We are a borough that already has lots of jobs in industrial areas and good town centres, and we really want to build that a lot more. So developers who have lots of experience in mixed use development, but we also want people who can bring new and innovative things that London needs, and come and do those in Ealing. We're particularly looking at the cultural and creative sector, building on our strengths in film and digital media, and the green economy will be really critical from now on. So we've got to find things that are going to replace some of those industries that have been dependent on the aviation sector. We know what's happening to that, and we've got to find those changes. So developers who can bring occupy, really looking for. We're also, we talked about zero carbon and climate change. We need people who can bring, we want to see zero carbon development. I think we will be looking increasingly at car-free development, particularly in our well-connected areas, but I think that's got to be the way forward. We need new infrastructure to come with the housing, with schools and health centres, and focusing on what the community needs as well. Both indoor community space where the public and communities can meet, but public open space as well. We've seen the real need for that during this crisis and people's desire to be outside in their local areas more, and I think we need to build on that as well. And just one other thing, really looking for developers who, picking up on all of those strands, want to stay with Ealing, want to be committed to Ealing, not just a quick in and out. You know, we will work with everyone in terms of getting things through our planning system, but it's really frustrating when we all work really hard and then a site gets sold onto someone else, and those ambitions and those things that we achieved through that planning permission need to then be started again. So really looking for people with long-term ambition and involvement to stay with Ealing and to make that difference to our borough.
Lucy, you couldn't be clearer, despite the breakup of your signal, which the sort of technology issues working from local authorities unfortunately cause, and obviously some investment in digital infrastructure wouldn't go astray. But your message is absolutely loud and clear, and has been delivered with great articulation and fluency. So don't worry on that point. And we're about to share some certain slides, I think, as you reveal what everyone's been waiting for. There are 150 developers out there now who are waiting to hear about the new development opportunities that you're now going to unveil.
Okay, well, I'm going to talk about 5 in particular, but this slide that you can see on the screen actually has 37 little blobs on it, and it's on our website, ealinginlondon.com, so please do go and visit that. And so there's lots of opportunity in Ealing. I would say the vast majority of that opportunity for you as developers is very much the a privately owned site, so we'd encourage you to come and have a look at the borough, and if you see things that you want to have a chat about, please do come and talk to us. But the 5 I'm going to talk about in particular, if we could just move to the next slide, please. The first one is in Ealing Town Centre, and it's called Sandringham Mews, and this is a privately owned site. It's probably one of the last major development opportunities in the heart of Ealing Town Centre. It's about 0.65 hectares, so reasonably big for a busy town centre location, and it's opposite Ealing Broadway Shopping Centre. And what we're looking for here, and there's further details in our local sites plan, is some mixed use, as I've described in terms of all of our developments. And this is a real opportunity to bring something new and different to our town centre, something that's cultural, creative, leisure at ground floor. And then we would be, we can talk about commercial or residential uses above. So that's a really exciting opportunity. We're happy to talk more about. The next one is called Acton Gateway, which is the gateway to Acton Town Centre. It's again privately owned, currently occupied by a Morrison's supermarket and a surface level car park. And I sometimes describe it as more sort of appropriate in somewhere outside of London, a very provincial town, and it sort of feels a bit odd sitting as our gateway to one of our key town centres. So again, really keen for people who could work with the landowner to create some development there with replacement retail space and an opportunity for other uses and residential as well. The third one is a real unique opportunity called Twyford Abbey, and some of you may have looked at this. We've certainly talked to various different people. Again, privately owned. It currently has planning permission for a school. It's got a grade 2 listed building on it, an old abbey. And a beautiful walled garden that could be created, and really lovely trees. As I say, it's got planning permission for a school, and I think the site would work well for a school or for a hotel or a real amazing opportunity for something really unique in a sensitive way. The fourth opportunity is called the Eastern Gateway. We like our gateways. Eastern Gateway to Ealing Town Centre, and this is on the approach, for those of you who know Ealing well, from Ealing Common into Ealing Broadway as you come in from the east of the borough. It's currently in a bit of a hodgepodge of uses, a couple of pubs and some other smaller privately owned uses. And it's an opportunity again for a mixed use development site with commercial, retail and some residential. And again, a chance to bring something new and innovative to complement the offer already in Ealing Town Centre. And then the final one is a council-owned site in Greenford, one of our town centres in the heart of the borough. And this is a surface level car park at the rear of the high street. We as a council would like to see some reprovision of some of the car parking, but we're also interested in development ideas that complement the town centre and bring new and additional uses to the town centre, and an opportunity for some residential. And this is also potentially an opportunity to consolidate some other community and council uses in Greenford, and that would potentially free up some other council-owned sites. So there's a bit of a piece of work there that needs to be done in Greenford. So 5 that we've picked out. As I said, we've got many others, and really just encourage you to talk to. We've got Ealing planners available this afternoon for those of you who've got meetings. But if you would like to come and talk to myself or the planning team, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And we're always really happy to speak to people early. We don't want you going off on a track with something that's not going to be deliverable in the borough. So please do come and have early conversations with us.
Fantastic, Lucy.
Okay.
And are you comfortable for us to share these slides with all the viewers after the event? We can send them out as part of the follow-up.
Absolutely, and they're part of in our magazine, our latest one, which you can also access via Ealing in London as well. So very, very happy to share those. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. That was terrific. Right. I hope that's whetted appetites. Now, you're thinking you've seen, you've heard of the leadership that's available to you, the political will to encourage development and growth. You've seen some development opportunities that have made your mouth water. But what's it actually like to work in Ealing? The proof of the pudding is always in the eating, and Greystar are happily eating away. I'm going to turn now to James Pargeter, a Senior Director at Greystar. James, what are you developing in Ealing, and how far along are you, and what else can we expect from you there?
Yes, well, thanks, Toby, and thanks everyone for setting the scene so well. And it's remarkable actually hearing you talk about your priorities for Ealing, how many of those are being delivered actually actively on our Greenford Quay site. Maybe not 100% of them, but we are very close, but in the sense that we are a large mixed use, mixed tenure development. Obviously, build to rent is our main business. So the majority of the homes, which are over 2,000 homes, are being provided into purpose-built rental sector, both in market rent and affordable rents. And we are really seeking to create a real, genuine new place that becomes the sort of heart of that neighbourhood. And the context of that was a disused industrial site. It was the original Glaxo site before they became GSK, and it's two pieces of land either side of the Grand Union Canal up in Greenford there. So we saw it immediately as a sort of vision for a really amazing place that we could create, and that's what we're now doing. And we've got the first building of nearly 400 homes is complete and is partially occupied. People are coming in and experiencing that new way of life. And we've got 6 other residential buildings to complete. 2 of those are going to be for sale, but 5 of them will be for rent. But in all of those buildings, there is something non-residential happening at ground level. Most of it's retail or cafe or workspace. In one of the buildings, there's going to be a new health centre, which is obviously going to serve, and all of these facilities serve the wider community as well as our own residents, of course. And then there's going to be a new primary school on another piece of land which hasn't yet started. And then there's the original Glaxo headquarters building, which is also listed, which is going to be refurbed a bit later on. So at the end of that, in another 4 or 5 years' time, probably we will have a really great place that has been constructed pretty much as quickly as possible, and it's in our interest as rental operators to do that. We've chosen to go down to a modular construction route, which has helped the programme and helped the speed of delivery, but it's also actually helped the sustainability credentials of the scheme, because we've managed to reduce construction traffic and site traffic and construction waste by 80% in each of those cases, and as well as having superbly insulated buildings, which overall, and even just on the first building, there's been a sort of formal study done on this. We've saved over 26,000 tonnes of CO2 by adopting some of those methods. Our principle is very much about sort of building that place, allowing people to have obviously their private apartments, which are all full-sized apartments, but have communal spaces within the buildings that they can share, whether that's for workspace. And I think that's something that's post-COVID is going to be increasingly important to people as people return to offices, but maybe not on a full-time 5-day-a-week basis. They may want somewhere closer to home, but not actually within their home to be able to work conveniently, and that will be provided for them. But it also it'll be an environment where people can meet their neighbours and thereby strengthen the sort of the community feel of the place.
Fantastic.
It's
exciting stuff.
Yeah, it really is, and I am conscious we're running out of time, so there's a lot more I could say.
Well, before we do, what's been your experience in bringing forward something that's quite advanced? This is quite pioneering stuff, really. We're used to hearing about it now, but when you started, it was a really new way to develop. What's your experience of working in and with Ealing?
Well, it's been really, really positive, actually. I mean, the collaboration has been great. I mean, from the outset, and we bought this site about 4.5 years ago now, and then progression of the the design, and with the planning team at Ealing in particular, has been really, really positive. They kind of got the build to rent concept from the outset, which really helped, because there are other places we work where it's not immediately apparent to people what the benefits of that are, but Ealing kind of got that from the outset, so that was really good. I think they understood that that these buildings would be different from what other people have developed elsewhere, and it was a question of also explaining that to the local community through an engagement program as well, to get local residents in the surrounding area to understand what it was that we're doing. Pretty different from the surrounding housing, but actually the level of objections and complaints were really, really very low once we'd been through that process, because people understood that we were doing that. It was going to benefit them as well through the provision of the ground floor amenities and the landscaping and the sort of new heart to that community, and different access routes and active travel routes through the neighbourhood. But also would provide new opportunities for jobs, not just in a construction phase, but actually longer term. Because we have management teams on site ourselves, and of course all the retail and other commercial spaces will have employment there as well. So we've taken an employment site, we've actually reintroduced employment to that site because it was largely redundant apart from a few security staff in advance of this development. So we are sort of ticking a lot of boxes really with this, which is really, really gratifying to see it come to pass and seeing people move in and living happily there.
Great stuff, James. Well, I can hear the bell ringing, and anyone who's been to Sitematch knows what that means. It means that we're out of time for this meeting, but the next meeting is about to begin, and you better get to your tables quick. How could you not want to meet with this council and discuss where and how and when to invest in Ealing after a briefing as positive as this? The lucky few who've pre-booked their meetings are now logging into discussions with Steve Barton, who's Strategic Planning Manager, and Alex Jackson, who's Development Planning Manager. And if you're not among them, don't worry. We have another block of meeting slots available from 10 a.m. on Friday, the 31st of July. Contact Paul at freefoxinternational.com to arrange yours. And also, as Lucy said, Ealing is one of the most welcoming and easy to do business with councils in London. Give them a call, drop them a line. In the meantime, it only remains for me to thank our sponsors today, So Resi and Carter Jonas, without whom none of this would have happened in the first place. To thank Councillor Bell, Councillor Mason, Lucy Taylor from Ealing Council, and James Pargeter from Greystar for their time and the effort that they've put into preparing their presentations for you today, and the passion with which they've communicated Ealing's opportunities to you. And most of all, you've asked questions, we will get them answered for you. I'm sorry we couldn't do it live, but it'll happen. Thank you for paying attention. The audience numbers are still up around the 150 mark after an hour, which is obviously a sign of your interest in investment, in growth, in getting the economy back going. So thank you to our viewers for watching. Invest in Ealing. Goodbye.